Devotion to love itself is probably where the rubber, I think, meets the road in so many relationships. It's relatively easy to cultivate intimacy, but being able to continually return to a devotion to love itself above and beyond you as individuals, being willing to do whatever it takes to move the relationship even deeper state and flow of love. There are 3 pillars to sacred intimacy, and the first one is simply intimacy, which we could define as a sort of sameness, like a recognition of oneness, of sameness, of humanness, of divine nature, right? Of consciousness, of light. When we think about intimacy, we're really talking about, it's a little bit more of a resonant seeing of each other, like really seeing and loving and being able to receive all of somebody. The way that intimacy works is through revealing, right? And intimacy gets strengthened when we're able to know each other's, deep desires, know each other's needs, know each other's, childhood programming, know each other's deepest fears and wounds. So all of this humanness, this same humanness, what we can relate to in our partners, even though we're not obviously having the same experience, that is the practice of intimacy, at least one practice. There's a couple more. So, having spaces where this kind of stuff is practiced, where human recognition and human acceptance and human, being witnessed as a human, that creates and strengthens intimacy. So I would ask you, how well are you doing that in your relationship? I know when I'm struggling in my relationship, it's usually because there's some, breach in our capacity to see each other as, flawed but beautiful humans. So first question, just take a look, scale of 1 to 10, how revealed are each of you to each other? And we'll get into what accepting that is, but really just being able to share fears, for example. That's a really simple and easy intimacy practice. Share desires, listen to each other's desires for the relationship. That's a really beautiful way to massage this human component together. As we do more and more of that, our hearts, our nervous systems become resonant, literally, we start to hum in the same way when we're in that really beautiful space of being revealed as who we are and being accepted, obviously, as who we are. And so intimacy is the practice. One component of it is the practice of recognizing each other's sameness as human beings. There's another piece to intimacy which looks beyond the human, right? That looks deeper. If you're staring into your partner's eyes, you can see the surface of them. You see the who they are, their body, their emotional body, their sort of unique hum. But as you look deeper, you'll start to feel parts of them that are, for lack of a better word, divine, right? And being able to soul gaze, so to speak, where you're recognizing loving love, as my teacher used to say, and you're recognizing, consciousness and love in each other. You're recognizing the divine, unchanging, beautiful essence of them. And in that recognition, it's a very deep sameness. It's a sameness that says, we are one. We are one. And we are 2 bodies in one heart. We are 2 bodies, one consciousness, really being able to enter those states. And so those things are usually accessed by, things like eye gazing or synchronizing breath. That's a beautiful way to cultivate an intimate moment, is to synchronize your breath with each other. And if you're doing that while eye gazing, that is a very deep start for, soul gazing and just continuing to look deeper and deeper until you see the stars in her eyes and until you see the vast sort of sky or desert in his eyes. And so it's, of course, a practice. Like virtually everything I'm going to be talking about in this podcast, these things are practices. They're not meant to be mastered quickly. They're filled with failure and recommitment, especially when we start getting into the second pillar. The second pillar of sacred intimacy, I would call devotion to love. Right? Devotion to love itself over our oftentimes personal and more self-interested needs. And devotion to love itself is probably where the rubber, I think, meets the road in so many relationships, right? This has certainly been my experience. It's relatively easy to cultivate intimacy. I just gave you a few practices to do that. It's relatively easy once you kind of know the formulas and you know the practices and you kind of know the yoga of it to create sexual polarity. But being able to continually return to a devotion to love itself above and beyond you as individuals, above and beyond, the relationship per se. This is about you being willing to do whatever it takes to move the relationship even deeper state and flow of love. And there's many, 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 many ways to do this. There's no right or wrong way per se, but there is a gesture towards that usually involves things like creativity, openness, acceptance, empathy, all kinds of gestures towards moving the relationship closer to love. Now, we've all had this experience where, we're humming along, sailing along in our relationship, and then also all of a sudden disharmony rears its head. And in disharmony, right, there's all of these, usually these things in between you, right, in the space between you, right? It seems empty, but there's possibly resentments, there's possibly judgments, there's possibly, unmet needs. There's all kinds of stuff that it will often just, cloud the relationship field between two people. And so devotion to love in one essence means that we're going to kind of continually clear that field so that the flow of love is just kind of constantly getting refreshed, I guess would be a good way to say it. Devotion to the flow of love could take many different shapes. In some moments, in some relationships, it could be taking space so that each of you can kind of ground and return, to yourself. It could be bringing play and laughter and playfulness to a specific moment that's getting quite heavy. And I think it really does include all sorts of practices of intimate communication, that the communication that reveals things to each other, but also, requests that you love the other person's experience as best you can. So devotion to love, this is hard. This is really hard. A devotion to love means I'm going to love their experience and understand and witness their experience as best I can. I'm going to open my heart to their experience rather than do things like be right. And, rather than devotion to whatever our ego is wanting us to have. So devotion to love is this constant kind of, leaning in oftentimes when you want to die, leaning in and being playful, leaning in and being vulnerable, leaning in and holding space for each other's feelings, leaning in and creating a culture of open, honest, truthful communication that's met with compassion. The third pillar of sacred intimacy is sexual polarity, which is the magnification and amplification of one or the other's masculine traits and essence and feminine traits and essence. So the way this works is that one partner sort of agrees to let go of their masculine and live and embody more in their feminine. And I'll explain what that means in a bit. But the other partner now will let go of their feminine, let go of, their feminine traits and aspects for the most part, not totally, right? We never totally let go of our masculine or feminine. It's just we actually dial one up and dial one down. So the masculine agrees to let go of their feminine. Again, this is gender neutral, partner neutral. You can switch, could be same-sex couples. It doesn't matter. We have one partner embodying and identifying more with their feminine. So what is that? I think we all have some basic ideas, but I'll give a framework that you can hold loosely and see, and take what you like, right? So the feminine in all of us, in every moment, in the universe, in all natural phenomena, is that which is experiencing. That part of us that's experiencing love, sensation, energy, flow, openness, heart break, desire, pleasure, all of that is the feminine. All of the experiential, flowing, changing, moment to moment juice and beauty, that is the feminine. So one partner choosing to kind of align their bodies, I guess would be a way to put it, to align their bodies with more juice, more fullness, more flow of love, more energy, more, just all of the things that amplify the experience. So you could say that the feminine partner, whoever that is kind of in charge of amplifying the experience. The masculine, on the other hand, will be in charge of deepening the experience. So how does that happen? When you are identified with your masculine, you are more identified with consciousness. You are more identified with the infinite space of awareness through which the experience is being felt, right? You are much more, rather than being full of movement, you're closer to emptiness and stillness. The masculine is spacious, deep, grounded, kind of grounds the moment, right? So when you have these really beautiful, high energy experience and expressions and something grounding that, it creates this really beautiful lock. You could imagine yin and yang, right? But it's much deeper. It's much sexier. It's not just the natural kind of masculine and feminine of nature and of all phenomena. It is that expressed through sex, through love, through sexual intimacy. So as we turn up the magnets on each pole, as the feminine partner kind of relaxes their masculine and turns up the energy, the fullness, the expression, the desire, all of it, the invitation to be ravished, the invitation, the desire to be ravished, all of those things, the more the feminine partner turns that up, and then the more the masculine partner turns up the part of them that is deep and penetrative and grounded and spacious in awareness, the more this arc of energy between these highly charged poles. So you could think of this as, like a super magnet, right? If the poles are only slightly charged, this arc of attraction, this arc of energy is going to be, placid. As you turn up the power of each pole, the strength of each pole, that arc of attraction, that arc of energy just becomes incredibly powerful. And it becomes this deep flow of love, desire, openness, expression, all of these things, like cosmic penetration, cosmic invitation. It's energetic, it's physical, it's all the things, right? We can just have physical sex, which, we all know how to do and, feels good and nothing really wrong with that, right? But when we want to deepen the experience and when we want to amplify, what we're looking for here is a deeply charged and juicy experience that's being held in depth. When you do that, it's, then you're in rarefied air of being able to make love.